Welcome to part 7 on our video series on the male identity crisis, what's going on for men right now and what's behind the rise of the manosphere. So in the videos so far, I've kind of outlined what the male identity crisis is, like what are the factors that are leading to this. But now let's look at the consequences of what's going on. And there's really two key ones here. So one is we're continuing to see really high rates of suicide in men. And the second is we're seeing the rise of the manosphere and a kind of re-emergence of misogyny that's really toxic to our society. So let's dive into these two. So I want to start with suicide. So obviously, trigger warning, we are going to be talking about suicide here. And I'm going to bring in some theory. So I want to talk about Joiner's interpersonal theory of suicide. And this theory really outlines two core factors, which is thwarted belonging and perceived burden. So if we think about what we've talked about so far, we had this idea that men were the provider, and that's just not possible anymore because boys are being failed in education, because we're now in this two-parent model where life is so expensive that one income isn't enough anymore, and constantly having to retrain because society is changing so fast and people are constantly having to change jobs just to survive. So instead of men feeling really purposeful, feeling like they are a provider for their family, they start feeling like a burden. The second factor is this thwarted belonging. So the idea that we need to belong, that someone needs to care if we're not going to be here anymore. And what we've seen is that the way society has changed has systematically destroyed men's coping networks, men's support networks, and so that sense of belonging has been degraded. Now, if we put those two factors into Joiner's interpersonal theory of suicide, we see that's the whole model, right? Men are feeling like they are a burden rather than a provider. Men aren't feeling that they're socially supported because their social support networks are gone. And that's why we continue to see men killing themselves at a rate of 3-to-1 compared to women. The second thing we're seeing is this kind of radicalization, men kind of going back to misogyny. And this is happening through influences through the manosphere. Why? Because these influences are speaking to people's pain. So if we think about the wider dialogue of society and we put it in the context of talking about the patriarchy, men are generally blamed for a lot of society's problems. And it's absolutely true that the patriarchy is a toxic influence. But as we've talked about, the patriarchy doesn't tend to benefit working class men either. It benefits rich white men. So working class men are feeling all of this pain, and a lot of the dialogue, when they talk about being in pain, they're told that they need to check their privilege. Now that may or may not be true. I have a lot of privilege, right? But it does mean that their pain isn't being heard. And that's really important because then they go into the manosphere and an influencer says, yeah, actually your life does suck. Here's why. You need to follow my crypto trading scheme and everything will be fine, right? But someone is listening to them. Someone is hearing their pain for all of the reasons we've talked about in this video series so far. A lot of men, specifically working class men, are in a lot of pain. And the only people acknowledging that pain and saying, yes, I see how much you're hurting, I see how hard life is for you now, is these manosphere influencers. Now, they then tell you, some of them tell you, let's not tar them all, but some of them tell you it's all women's fault and the only way out of this is to buy a crypto day trading scheme. Now, neither of those things are true. It is absolutely not women's fault. And these any crypto scheme, any day trading scheme, all of this stuff is typically a scam. You're not going to make all of the money. The influencer is going to make all of the money. But what these people are very good at doing is making people feel heard. So this isn't about being gullible, it's about somebody actually listening to men and hearing their pain. Now, this is where social media algorithms get involved, because these algorithms are designed to keep us addicted. So what we might do is we see a piece of content that's framed around self-improvement, right? Someone is telling us, acknowledging our pain and saying, here's how you can improve yourself to get out of it. Men are going to like that. They're going to click the like button because someone is listening to them and someone is offering them a solution, whether or not that solution is true or not, right? But a lot of the content is also framed around self-improvement. It's not negative. It's here's how you can make things better for yourself. And so we hit the like button, and then suddenly our feed is entirely filled with all of this content, and it's moved away from just mere self-improvement. Now it's full of misogyny. And again, because of the social media algorithms, this all becomes an echo chamber. So rather than feeds showing us contradictory views, showing us where something that might challenge us, it shows us the stuff we're hitting the like on, and it constantly reinforces the same narrative. And that narrative moves from you can make your life better to this is all women's fault and we need more misogyny in the world. Now, this is a massively toxic message, but it's one that's reinforced by the social media algorithms that create an echo chamber, a bubble that men find themselves in, where everything they see is just reinforcing what they've been told.